I have chosen to pursue a degree in education policy and analysis from the Harvard Graduate School of Education to equip myself with the knowledge and practical skills needed to make informed decisions within the education sector in Nigeria. That is the first paragraph of the statement of purpose that got me into the education policy and analysis program at the Harvard School of Education. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are preparing for grad school or you're in the process of application already and you're struggling with writing your personal statement, this video is for you. So one mistake I've seen commonly, especially since I have been privileged to read a couple of essays, is that people write great essays, but sometimes they don't write the right essays. And one thing you have to understand is that the admission committee is not just looking for your stories to read. They're not just reading to be inspired. They're reading to see if you can follow instructions and if you can also communicate properly. Today, I want to talk about one thing that made a difference in my essays, and that is fully understanding and dissecting your prompts. And today, I'll walk you through how I approach my own personal statement, how I broke my prompt into parts, and how I structured my story around that. Most personal statements are doing three things at once. They want to know where you're coming from, why you want this degree, and why this program makes sense for you. So you can write a really good story. It can be really interesting. You can write a very inspiring story that everyone loves to read, but you might not be answering the prompts. Each school has different prompts and different ways they want you to package your essays. For example, this was a prompt that was given to me while I was applying to the Harvard Graduate School of Education at the time. In your statement, please discuss your background, what lived experiences have contributed to your commitment to work in the field of education or with education-related issues, your objective for graduate study, what are your academic and professional goals, and what knowledge, skills, and tools are you hoping to develop through enrollment in a graduate program, your fit, why is enrollment at HGSC and in your selected program and concentration, if applicable, critical in helping you achieve your goals? So as you can see from the prompts I got, the admission committee, they were looking for me to answer three main parts of the essays. They wanted me to give answers to three main themes. And what I did was while answering, I have a copy of my essay right here. While answering my essays, I literally broke it down. I broke my essays into three different parts, making sure that I was answering every single part of this essay prompt that was given to me. The first part I started with was my background, which was about 2 pages. And then I had the objective of my graduate study next. And this was about like 1.5 page. And finally was my feet. And that was about 1 page. And that was what made up my statement of purpose for my application into the Harvard Graduate School of Education. For a developing country like Nigeria, the need for education cannot be overemphasized. The educational pursuits of many Nigerians and the establishment of the first university in Nigeria in 1948 significantly contributed to the resistance against colonial rule and served as a catalyst for the attainment of our independence in 1960. So for my background, I started from my country, Nigeria, and this is because my goal for graduate study was something that had to do with my country in general. It was a problem that was affecting a lot of people in my country and then affected me personally in my family. I started with how education was so important for us to be able to gain our independence back as a country. After talking about Nigeria, I went into how we started experiencing some problems in the 2000s, more population, as we started to grow in population, we didn't have enough universities, and how I experienced some of these challenges firsthand and talked about how my siblings found it very hard to get into public universities in Nigeria and the kind of struggles that they had. They had good grades in secondary school and they were not able to get admission into a school because of just how limited the universities are compared to the population in the country. That kind of gives you an overview of where I'm coming from. That was how my background started. I ended that's part of my background with. Hence, my aspiration to study education policy analysis at Harvard is not just a personal ambition, but a strategic step towards acquiring the knowledge and skills needed to contribute meaningfully to the resolution of issues plaguing the Nigerian education sector. When you're talking about your background, it's really not just about listing achievements. Of course, you can put in some of the achievements you've made, but it's mainly about context. Like, who are you? Where are you coming from? And what problem have you seen up close? Your background doesn't have to come from your country. It can be something within your family. It can be something that you experience personally. It can be related to someone you know. It doesn't have to always be a national problem. It can be as personal as possible, but you really want to start from this broad landscape of the issues and the problems and let it all connect back to why you want to do this graduate program or why you want to do this graduate study. Why do you want to pursue a master's degree? Why do you want this degree? I want to pursue a master's degree in education policy because working for a not-for-profit university has exposed me to some of the policy-making issues in the country, and I want to gain the knowledge that will help me to be able to administer this change in my country. That is the reason. That is important. That must be stated in your essay. But you must also be able to write a story that trickles down to why you finally had that passion in your heart. How did you end up with this decision in your mind? Why did you decide to go to grad school? Don't make any assumptions that your admission reader or whoever is reading your essays know what is happening in your country. You'll be surprised at how many people don't know what is happening in your world. Because the world is such a big place. There are like, 9 billion people here, and everyone is experiencing the world in a different way. You want to write about your world in a way that someone can understand and think, I understand what you mean. Even though I've never lived there, even though I've never experienced this, I understand where this passion is coming from. I see what you're talking about. I see the vision. I see the purpose. You want to be able to be clear about it. Yeah, so I ended my background with just talking about the beginning stages of my career, graduating from undergraduate degree, my first job ever, and the professional certifications I had, which was my ICANN and my CFA examination, and how that experience was very important and pivotal for my career growth and for how I eventually pivoted into the education space in Nigeria. And then I went on to the next session of my essay, which is the objective of my graduate study. Working for an educational startup that is launching a new private university in Nigeria has exposed me to some integral flaws associated with the educational sector within Nigeria. These flaws are also evident in several educational institutions across the region and in other countries in Africa. The most prominent is the lack of funding and the ineffectiveness of educational policies within the continent that have been argued to restrict rather than enhance access to higher education. So for my objective, I focused on why graduate study and why now. And so I started with my career in the education space because this was an education master's program I was applying for. I talked about how I joined the I currently was with at the time, and also the vision of the university and how this was going to bring hope back to a country that had an educational landscape that was struggling, what the university was going to contribute back into Nigeria as a whole. My objective for graduate studies was really about education. This is an education policy program, and this is what I have done so far in the educational space in my country. And this is how this graduate program is going to help me do more. There's some people that are just like, they've been in, for example, maybe they've been in engineering or something unrelated to education for their entire life, and they just want to pivot into the education space and do something different. They don't really have a story to tell, but you still have whatever made you have this change in heart or develop the passion in you. That should be where you talk about it. It should be part of your objective for graduate study. This is what fueled this passion in me. If you've done anything related to education one way or the other, this is the part of your statement of purpose that you want to list this in. So the last part of my essay is my feat. And I'm going to read the first paragraph. It says, as an aspiring education leader, my passion for creating change must be coupled with the knowledge and practical skills needed to bring about the change I want to see in education in Nigeria. I intend to do this through my lived and learned experience at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And then I went on to quote parts of the program curriculum from the website, which says it is designed to prepare you to lead and engage in education policy development, analysis, and change in organization and settings. In this part, I talked about how I've assumed many roles in the Nigerian education space. I was on the board of a scholarship foundation that was dedicated to supporting Nigerian students at all levels. And then I also talked about my alma mater, where I was an executive member of the Alumni Association. I just kind of connected how all of these roles and the roles I was doing in the university at that time have directly impacted the lives of many and have necessitated my interest in pursuing a graduate degree in education policy and analysis. And then I'd also talk about my research interests and things I want to focus on, which was on education policy, education financing, economics of education, leadership in higher education. And I talked about how I aspire to promote effective policy making decisions in my country that would lead to sustainable quality higher education. I ended my essay with saying, studying for this degree at one of the best graduate school in education and a globally renowned university will provide me with the unique experience necessary to develop value-adding educational systems in Nigeria. And yeah, so that was my essay. That was my statement of purpose. So for your statement of purpose, one final check you should always do is you go back to your prompt and you highlight every single part of your prompt. And when you highlight those prompts, you want to go back to your essays and ask yourself, why did I answer this part of my prompt? I recently reviewed an essay, and as I was reading, I read the prompt and I found that there was one part of the prompt that wasn't answered in the essay. And I had to go back to the writer and tell them that you really want to check that you answer every single part of it. You don't want to give the admission committee any reason to, especially if you're applying to a top school or a very competitive school, you don't want to give the admission committee any reason to say, oh, this person didn't really answer the question. This is a really nice story, but we ask these questions for a reason and we want to know how this connects back. So you want to check that. You want to make sure that you check that. And you want to tell your story in a way that you're answering every single prompt. And I really advise people to break down their personal statements so that it's even easier, because admission readers are reading like 1,000 essays, like 2,000, depending on the kind of school, your program and your school. You might want to break it down, especially if some of their essays have more than one prompt. You want to know why, where, how, this, that. And so you want to break it down so that they can easily read and see that you're answering every part of the prompt. So thank you guys for watching my video today. If you found it impactful, leave a comment. If you want to know more information about my grad school journey, I will be posting some information. Please like and subscribe and share with someone that you think this might be helpful with. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. My mic. This is why you should wear the mic, because I wasn't using it. Okay, I'll do that again. For a developing country like Nigeria, the need for education cannot be overemphasized. Why do I keep messing it up? Okay, let's go again.